The title that we have for today is how to view a doctor, a therapist. Basically, how does a yid look at Tahrah? In simple words, how does a yid view a doctor, a therapist, economist? Just to put fancy words to Tahrah. But the collection of letters is specifically in the area of happiness, in the area of Banei Chaim Mezayne. So the area of Banei, which is not only children, but it's also nachas, it's also shalom, it's the general word for it in English would be happiness. I put together a collection of letters, but we'll see in the end will flow from the discussions we've had the past few weeks. Okay, so let's jump into the discussion. It's really the third class on the topic of shituf, which is how we view teva, how we view nature. And this class will have within it also a summary and some of the things we've discussed. Let's start with the Sikha of the Rebbe, how the Rebbe discusses Afrashas Chala. Okay? And we'll see how that plays out in life. So the Medrash, the Chazal say that Kol HaMekayim Mitzvahs Chala Ki'ilu Koifer Ba'avodah Zarah. The Rebbe brings us down in a Sikha, and the Rebbe asks two questions. He asks, number one, Chala is a very technical mitzvah, Hafrashas Chala, separating Chala. The jump between Hafrashas Chala to Ki'ilu Bitul Avodah Zarah is a pretty large jump. What's the connection between Avodah Zarah and Hafrashas Chala? There doesn't seem to be a visible connection between these two ideas. The second question the Rebbe asks is, if we pay attention to the wording here, what we're saying is that by default we are oivdei avodah zarah, and when we mafresh chala, then we're deactivating the existing avodah zarah. Bitul means you're deactivating. In other words, it's already there, and through being mafresh chala, I'm taking it away. Why is it already there? That's such an extreme thing to say about a yid, that he's already oived avodah zarah. Oh, now that you're mafresh chala, oh, Baruch Hashem, now you're mevatel avodah zarah that you already have in your life. What kind of thing is this? Where is avodah zarah present in our life that hafrashas chala takes it away? It's almost like the default of a yid is oived avodah zarah. How does that play out? The Rebbe's medayik that if you would say koifer b'avodah zarah, then I get it. But if you say bittul, that means you're deactivating it. Okay. So the idea over here that the Rebbe discusses is, what is hafrashas chala? Even in English we say making dough is making money, right? That's what we say. That's what we say in English. So the idea of earning money is making bread. Bread, that's the idea. So chala is really synonymous to the whole concept of parnasa vayid. Comes along the Eibishter. The Eibishter gives us a mitzvah of a certain recognition that he expects from us within how we make a living. And that's the concept of Afrashas Chala. A certain recognition that's expected of a yid, how they go ahead making a living, which is really a consequence how they go ahead doing anything in life. And that's the idea of Afrashas Chala. We'll explain what that is in a second. Interestingly enough, a baker doesn't need that much of Afrashas Chala like someone who makes challah in their home. The Chacham gave a shear to a nachtoim, to a baker, which is less than the shear that is for someone who makes challah in their house. So then the recognition that a baker needs is less. For some reason, they have it already halfway there. It's Aleph Michof Dalad, Aleph Mem Ches. There's some recognition that's already halfway there. Let's explain what this is. So this recognition, whatever this recognition that's expected of us, someone who's a baker already has halfway there. Someone who's in the house has it less. So let's explain first what is this recognition and why someone who's in the house needs it more. And we'll find other examples of this differentiation between two different kinds of Yidden and which one needs it more, which one needs it less, and why. So what's the idea of a Farashas Chala? So we've discussed in the past that if you really ask a Yid when they daven, why are they davening? Let's review for a second. Brought out that at the bottom, subconsciously, many people daven, Eibishter, stay out. I'm healthy, don't make me sick. So just keep away. Leave me alone. The bottom of, when I'm not feeling well, come back. But until then, stay out. That's in the bottom of our minds. That's really how many people daven to the Eibishter. In Parnasa, I'm doing well now. Just don't mess up. I have a good strategy. I'm making money. Don't have a hurricane happen. That's going to mess everything up. All my calculations fall away. Teva's working for me. Stay away. I'm happy now. Don't make me unhappy. Everything is working for me. Stay away. And we brought out how essentially this was the mindset of Doir Enosh. Why Doir Enosh? Because if we pay attention, Doir Enosh, all they said was, they gave kavod to the kechavim and mazalas. What does it mean giving kavod to kechavim and mazalas? Really what that means in life, and the Tzemach Tzedek, like we explained last week, explains that that's not just Doir Enosh, that's also Doir Haflaga, it's also the Doir of Achav, and it's also in business today. How a person conducts business can be with that same mindset. It's a prevalent mindset that's actually the default mindset of every single person without any effort of paying attention to it. This is how we think. This is how the normal way we think, which is why Hafrashas Chala is a needed necessity in order to take that conscious, that default mindset away. What's that default mindset? The default mindset is, look, Eibishter created a system. Eibishter created a world. In Gan Eden, he provided. But afterwards, he said, Yigia kapecha kisoicho. He said, I have to make a living. I have to make it happen. Al pi teva. Good. So I'm doing it al pi teva. So now I have to focus my attention with teva. I mean, that's what he told me. I'm not saying something opposite of what he told me. I'm following his instructions through focusing on teva. And that's exactly what we all do on a day-to-day basis. What are we supposed to do? Rely on an S? We don't rely on this, and we do it up teva. So if it's in regards to wealth, parnasa, I have to find a strategy that works. And I have to make it work. And teva is going to be the mother how I go ahead making a living. That's what he wants from me. If it's going to be when I'm ill, chas v'shalom, or when I need health, a doctor is going to be the person. The economist will tell me in wealth. The doctor will tell me in health. And there are other people who will tell me in other areas that I need help with, who will address those areas as well. That's what Eibishter told me. He threw me out of Gan Eden and he told me I should do things up teva. So that's exactly what I do. So what's wrong? So what's this whole discussion of Afrashas Chala? What do I need to address within this mindset that's so terrible? Can we please pinpoint to the problem in this mindset before we address it and fix it? What's the problem? So this highlights the problem over here is like this. And this problem is at the core of all areas in Yiddishkeit. And every denomination.
To us. We need to show the Rebbeinu Shalom that we.
So we're not ideologically, we're practically this problem. Where does this practically play out as a problem? So where does this problem play out in life? It plays out in life in areas where Torah mitzvahs contradicts happiness. It contradicts wealth. And it could contradict health. It seems to. Let's play it out. In business, a few examples that seem to contradict Shabbos. Eibishter, I don't understand. You told me I should do things al pi teva. So I go to the economist, and the economist tells me don't close. And you told me that if I'm going to rely on you, that's not how I'm going to get parnasa. What do you want from me? You're putting me in a pickle. It doesn't make sense. You told me I should do things al pi teva, so I'm doing it al pi teva, and the economist tells me to do something, and then you come and you mix in, you tell me to do something else, but you told me a second ago I should do it al pi teva. What do you want from me? You don't make sense. That's a huge frustration. Contradiction within what Hashem is telling me. You're giving me conflicting messages. What do you want? And how am I supposed to play to your tune when your tune doesn't really ring normal? I mean, it's contradicting. In happiness, there could be certain things that you're intrusive. You're telling me I should go apple to apple, al pi teva, I should be happy, so I'm going to go, but they're telling me that and I feel like you're intrusive, and you're telling me these things to do that don't really match up, and 1 + 1 is 2, doesn't really equal up over there. It's intrusive. It has nothing to do with teva. This is something added in addition and imposing within my life. It's not from within my life naturally there. It's not, it's imposing. So what? I don't understand. What's your message? What do you want from me? You threw me out of Gan Eden, and you told me to do it on my own, and then you mix in again, and you told me to do something else, so then take care of me. No, I should do it al pi teva. What do you want? And the same thing in health. So here is where we have a problem, but how do we solve this problem? So what do we do? So this has been a discussion we had last week, the week before, and today we're going to focus it on how it plays out in happiness. So first, let's address it. So what do we do? What's Afrashas Chala? Let's remind ourselves what this is. Afrashas Chala is that a person is supposed to recognize a different reality within Teva. An example we gave to explain this was an example from a child in a business. I'll remind you the example. A father who's very wealthy has a child, and the child, lechatchila, is born. He knows that every child who's born within a business doesn't know how to create it automatically. He knows how to spend, but he doesn't know how to create. So the father has to put him within the business. He becomes an employee. He's under a supervisor. He gets a paycheck. He works certain hours. He behaves and acts exactly like others. And he's not allowed to behave differently. He gets no exceptions. It's never going to be seen in his conscious behavior that he's anyone else besides an employee. Looking from the outside, you look at the two people on the bench, they both look like employees. And that's how the father is going to allow the child to learn what it means to create he has to learn from within, he has to feel it. He has to become an owner, you have to sweat. It's got to come through Yegia Kapecha. There's got to be something there to become an owner. You're a spoiled brat, in other words. In Gan Eden, we're spoiled brats. And that's why there was problems there. He threw us out, you got to sweat to become an owner. Now, what happens when the supervisor tells you that there's a project of 14 days, and it's crucial for the success of this company that 14 days has to be from A to Z. Comes along the father and calls you to come home on the 7th day. So the child, how does he react? He says, no, I can't come. I'm going to mess up the whole company. Chacham Einer. I'm the father. I created this company. If I'm calling you on the 7th day and telling you to come home, I'm essentially telling you, I know how this company works. And I'm actually here defining to you who you are. The fact that I'm telling you to come home I'm coming to explain to you, I'm coming to bring out to you a different reality that you are never meant to become an employee. You were there. Things are defined by why, not by what. Two people do something, the why defines what you do. You have to remember there's a kavanah, there's a reason why you're there. The reason has nothing to do with the other people who are genetically employees. They are meant, they sleep and they walk and talk and think like an employee. You're meant, you're supposed to pick up other things. You're supposed to look at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and pick up what it means to run a company. You're supposed to sit there, like say, a yid like walks by a building, he asks, oh, who owns it? A guy asks, how can I rent, right? That's the this. But you're supposed to pick up exactly how you're supposed to pick up and be there. You're supposed to understand the dynamics. Don't become an employee. Don't be someone who's stuck under the employee mindset. When I told you the seventh day, I'm essentially defining to you the 6 days. The seventh day taking off is essentially defining that the 6 days are also not 6 days. There are different 6 days. And that's what we have to understand. I'm doing those 6 days, but it's not like the other people, the 6 days define them. And by me, I have to work them, but they're not necessarily defining me. Now let's play this out in life. What does this really mean? Sounds a little bit perhaps philosophical. Let's play this out in life. You take two businessmen. Most people take two businessmen. One person who's experienced and one person who's young. And you see this all the time.
One person's experienced and one
Experienced, a person who does deals. An experienced businessman, otherwise a young, just came out of college, comes into the office. A rookie. Comes into the office. What do you see? And you see this as a real thing. In other words, you see there's two perceptions of how to view a strategy, logically. And Abishai created the world this way in a fascinating thing. The Gemara says that Abishai created an imperfect world. In English, we say there's no guarantees besides taxes and death. We say that in English. And death. Right? That's the only guarantee is death and taxes. Essentially, that means to say the only guarantee is the Abishai. That's what we say in English. We say that in English. There's no guarantee besides taxes and death. Any businessman will tell you my strategy is not foolproof. The only foolproof thing is death and taxes. That's the only guarantee. What are we saying over here? The Abishai created an imperfect world. Strategies, the Gashmias, always have a missing link. Always. There's always a missing link in every strategy that's luck. In English, it's called luck. In Hebrew, it's called siyata deshmaya. Call it whatever you want. There's a missing link, and they should create it on purpose. In order for us to change our perception of nature, we have to go into nature. And the more a person is in nature, the more they recognize this. They say in business, the unknown affects the strategy more than the known. In life, they say that too. The unknown can shake up things more than the known in a major way. Right? Yeah. So how does this play out? So it plays out in two ways. The businessman who's experienced, a deal comes to the table that makes sense. Makes sense. Looks like it's going to make money. The young businessman is already counting his money. He's actually already spending it because it's coming. He's so sure it's happening. Makes sense. 1 + 1 is 2. Why shouldn't it happen? And the older one says, relax. I've seen this already. The bank can pull the plug in the last minute. This can happen. Yeah, it's 1%. Wait and see. Wait. It doesn't make sense till it makes sense. Pray as you go to the bank that it should actually happen. Ooh, did you hear that? I'm praying that something that makes sense should happen. I thought that prayer is out of the area of making sense. I thought I'm praying he should stay out. No, experienced businessmen tell you, pray that when it makes sense, it should work out. Because even when it makes sense, it's not because it's making sense that it's happening. Things don't just happen. Let me give you another example. Insurance policies. Essentially, insurance is protecting you from the Abishter. That's what insurance really is. Right? It's protecting you from the Abishter. That's what it is. Person lives a life, a person makes a strategy. So then they want insurance. What's insurance? Protect me from the unknown. So the insurance agency comes to you and they tell, okay, I'll protect you from death. Why? Because I can make a calculation on this. I can protect you from this. I can make a calculation that pays off me. But there are some things I can't protect you from. Acts of God. Every insurance policy has acts of God. And that he can't protect you from. Why not? Because this is that 0% is so if there are certain hurricanes, if I'm going to the whole money doesn't play out. These are certain things that come that I can't calculate and put them into my books to be able. It's acts of God. They're random, but their consequences are so detrimental that I can't. But one second, you ever thought about how that doesn't make sense? The whole insurance industry is there to protect you against that 1%. And they're convincing you should be worried about the 1% and protect yourself from it. But then they're telling you that these radical 1% they can't protect you from. What are they essentially telling you? I can't protect you. They're pulling the rug from under their whole industry. Every area in nature, there's always going to be something that they're going to say, I can't. Now, there are two ways how people look at it. You look at the other way around. Doctors, you find these wacky doctors that are looking to help people live infinitely, right? These people that they think they're going to come up with this. Here you have the same people in the world. Then you have other doctors that say, I see the body, and the more I get to know it, the more I realize there's nothing I can do, and I'm just lost in the maze and the wonder of a body. I see that a person has a bechira. It's two businessmen. One was experienced, he says, I prayed to the bank. Another one could be very overly bloated ego, and he doesn't pray to the bank, right? It has nothing to do with success, it has everything to do with attitude. It's a logical calculation that someone can make within nature as they approach, whatever they're approaching. How do they deal with the missing link? It goes in business, it goes in doctors, and it's going to go in happiness too. They say, it's brought down by Kriyas Yamsuf, the Eibishter made all the Naharis, all the rivers in the world split. The question is why? Why did he make all the rivers split? It's brought down, the reason is, so people should have the bechira to say it was a natural occurrence. It was a hurricane, not a hurricane, it was a tsunami, everything split. If it would only be by the Yidden, they would say it's clearly for the Yidden. So the Eibishter makes things in a way that we have a choice. Within nature, we have a choice. Just like extraordinary things that he makes, he gives us the ability to deny it. Also, the natural things he created, he gives us the ability to either allow him into it or deny him. Yidden took tzaras, which looked like a natural occurrence, and they said there's something here for it. A Yid is wired to think, has the ability to think, and not only has the ability, but that's his real, we'll see that in a second, his real success in life is dependent on this thinking. There were letters on this thinking how he has to find the Eibishter in his natural life. How does this play out? I'm going to show you letters here. I want to go to the area of happiness. Last week we talked about health. Business, there's so many letters of Meiser and Shabbos. Shabbos is a right, is a school for business, not the closing on the seventh day. Someone gave me the example of B&H, that the B&H closes and they close the website and they close also on Chalamoid. Very nice. That's all business. And that's health. Let's go to the area of happiness. The Rebbe writes tremendous things. How the mindset of a person when they come to a physical problem, a natural problem, the first area they should look at, the first area is the area of a keli, not in the physical realm. And how does that play out? All right, let's see for ourselves. Let's open up the letters, let's go through them slowly, and let's see how it plays out. Look at I don't want to go specifically. Let me just quote the letter and we'll see for ourselves. Let's go to the second page. Page 1. It says page 1 on the bottom. TM is a root cause. So here's a letter of a Rebbe where a person didn't have children for a while. I'm just going to quote the letter, then I'll discuss it. Just want to quote it. But I have the copy inside because it's such a powerful letter. Put the letter inside. The Rebbe writes, a person didn't have children for a while. And it was a few years after the chasana. And he's writing to the Rebbe for a bracha. So he writes like this. The first thing I want you to find out is if his wife or shnur, daughter-in-law, had Tahrah mishpacha. And the Rebbe writes like this. When we keep Tahrah mishpacha, the Eibishter gives us healthy children. Healthy physically and healthy spiritually. And it could be that she wasn't so careful, so it's a chesed from Hashem that she had no children until now.
Wow.
Pay attention. He didn't have children for a while. He's complaining. It's a chesed from Hashem that she didn't have children until now. Wait. Because the Eibishter wants to give her healthy children, physically and spiritually. It continues. It's not a question. That which you see, that there are those who don't keep Tahrah mishpacha, and they have seemingly in bold, v'yasvayis healthy children. That's only because you don't really know what's going on in the other person's life. And the pain that the parents feel from the injustice that they did towards their children in these kinds of cases is so intense that they're embarrassed to talk about it, and they hide it in different ways. The pain that the parents feel from causing their children to be unhealthy because of not keeping Tahrah mishpacha, they hide it in many ways. And inside of them, they're going through a lot of pain. And if we would only be able to share these facts that most parents have a huge charata, regret, over the fact that they didn't keep Tahrah mishpacha, then we wouldn't have to talk about the point of keeping Tahrah mishpacha. Rebbe writes in the end, don't do this for the Eibishter, do it for yourself. So how does the Rebbe take a mitzvah? The areas, just like Shabbos, is a key for Parnasa, and it doesn't make sense, but the seventh day defines the 6 days. If I keep Shabbos, then my strategy that I made in a natural way will work. If I don't keep Shabbos, it's not going to work. Al derech zeh, in the area of happiness, comes along, and this is only the beginning. This mitzvah is so crucial to the extent that the physical health of my children is dependent on that physical, the natural way how things work. By me, it works out differently. By a yid, the gashmiistic happiness plays out differently. I'm not an employee. I have to work. We'll see how the doctors play out. I still have to go and do the regular. But in the areas of the mitzvahs, remember this is as important. Listening to your father when he tells you take off on the 7th day is as important as listening to him when you work on the 6 days. Because it's all your father's. And he has different reasons for both. He has reasons why you have to do this, and he has reasons why you have to do that. But don't look at the 7th day as intrusive. Look at the 7th day as part of your strategy for success. Look at the mitzvah that seems intrusive as part of how you're going to become happy, because that is how you're going to become happy. Let's take another letter. The next letter. Person writes that they lost it's double-sided.
The sick child?
Sick child, yeah. It's double-sided, so the sick child. Page number 2. Person writes that they have a sick child. Page number 2. No, it's in Hebrew. The first one was in Yiddish. Page number 2. So the Rebbe writes, he's going to be mispalo for refuah shleima. Ubetach yenatzel, of course he's going to use out this opportunity to find out if the child was born mitara. And the Rebbe gives an example. The child is sick.
The sick child.
The sick child. The Rebbe says, al derech, when you go to a doctor or a lawyer, you need to tell them the truth. Because if not, it's not going to help the person who's asking, and it's illogical. Same thing in our case. and explain to the parents, I'm not looking to be ma'oyer dinim, to judge. I'm just looking that the medicine should fit to the circumstances and to the causes that brought to it. And just like a doctor, he doesn't just heal the consequences, but he heals the cause. And if you only heal consequences, it's only a little matter of time that the cause will come back. And I don't have to elaborate on that. Again, the person is sick, he's going straight to the seventh day and the 6 days. In all the niyanim of a yid, Torah mitzvahs, those who looked at Torah mitzvahs as intrusive, missed the point. We were never meant to be under Teva, that Teva defines how I'm going to be happy. Look, I'm sick. I go to a doctor, he can tell me how to be healthy. No. Don't forget, you have another way how you're different. And this is your keli. Keli means this is your road. The child in Parnasa, the road to his success is the seventh day as much as the 6 days, and happiness, Tahrah. And keli means this is my road. This is my path. Keli is the mindset of a person that they're opening up, they're realizing, the bringing in the Eibishter. The mindset of a person that it's just as important is called keli. That's called keli. Why is that called keli? The child who's sitting in the business, let me bring this out like this. The child in the business, when he's closing his mind to his father's success, is called no keli. When he's opening his mind to his father's request of taking off on the seventh day, now he's a keli to his father. He's open to his father. When we're open to our father, when we recognize that his request is as important, not as that is important for my success, that's called I'm a keli to him. I'm now open to him. Where does the keli play out in Torah mitzvahs? Because that's his requests. That's what I'm saying. So let's play it out in the next letter. Here's a letter of a child and father that have friction. And again, the Rebbe writes about Taras Mishpach. In English, I got his request of asking to help about his child. It wasn't his child, it was his brother's child, his nephew. That's not doing merugas. He's upset at his father, his uncle, his nephew with his brother are not getting along. I'm going to ask a bracha that should be shalom. Then he says, in Sfarim it's explained that when there's not peace between two people, it's not always the reason they think it is. It's not always the reason that they say that that's the reason they're not getting along. There could be such deep reasons that even their own nefesh Bahamas doesn't really recognize that that's the reason why they're not getting along. And therefore you have to find out from your brother two things. If he put enough effort that his son should have a Yiddish chinuch, and to the extent that he could, and if neilot betara. Find this out from your brother. And Hashem Yisbarach should help you.
You're having friction now.
So we're going to see soon there's going to be a letter in the end how to rectify the past. We'll get to that in a second. First, let's see what Tahara does, the importance of what it does in life. It's a Pesach for brachas. In many areas. I took different areas. I was looking through it. Many different areas. And then we'll see how it rectifies the past. Next letter. Person lost a child. Person lost a child. So the Rebbe writes, L'chol l'roish, the first thing she should find out if his wife keeps Taras Mishpacha. Kidrishas Toidoseinu. Here he goes into specifics. It should be meimayon, it should be a kosher mikveh. And all the other dinim that apply. Another thing he says is, be mevar if there was no offensiveness. She didn't offend someone in the previous shidduch. This is in regards to a miscarriage. I'm not sure if it's a miscarriage or they actually lost a child. Doesn't seem clear. Probably lost. Nebdul Leibanu. Another thing he says is to check the tefillin and mezuzahs of the husband, the tefillin of the husband and mezuzah of the house. The Eibishter should give them the brachas that they need. First thing in the mishpacha, in yonei mishpacha, is Tahrah. Gashmius, Pashat the Begashmi, all the inyanim of Bane is not just Bane, it's Nachas, that's what the friction, it was health of the children, having children, and we'll soon see another example. So far we had health, having children, shalom within parents and children. We'll see a few more examples. Okay, the next letter is also Benegea losing a child, but look at this letter. The Rebbe writes, in answer to the letter that she writes about her health, and here it's a miscarriage, nigmar, so it's a miscarriage. The Rebbe writes, the first thing is lischazik b'bitachon. Bitachon is the discussion we had. The whole discussion we had about hashgacha pratis. What's hashgacha pratis? The Eibishter is involved even in the things that make sense, even in the areas that I'm doing on my own. He's involved in nature on every single step of the way. The Baal Shem Tov says the leaf that falls from the tree, the strategy that falls out of my head, the brainstorm that I came up with, all of these things is the Eibishter guiding me on my way. The employee, the child sitting in the company that's acting like an employee, recognize that this manager of yours, it's like see-through. The boss is, the father is looking through him and looking. Ask the manager, he's like, this kid, I'm not his manager. I'm just following instructions from the boss. I have nothing to do with him. I mean, he has to, whatever the boss tells you is what I do. It's see-through. It's like a child. You ask a child, who hit you? His hand hit me. And the Malaman should understand, it's not the hand, there's a person behind the hand that's hitting. The manager is like a hand hitting. The Eibishter is involved in every step of the life of a Yid. Also, everybody else, but Begoli in a Yid. That's Hashgacha Pratis. The whole discussion we had is Hashgacha Pratis. So the first thing is a discussion to yourself, with yourself, to yourself, of what Hashgacha Pratis means. That's the first thing he writes. Tachlis Atoy, whatever, that's another. Then he says like this. Of course you're going to be Medayik, and this is a consequence of Hashgacha. Of course you're going to be Medayik in Taras Mishpach, Chukitznias Bechlal, and this will help all the brachas you need. Then he says, but you need to do something about Derech HaTeva. So he gives a few eitzes. You should ask a Roife Mumche, Bechlal, Benegea Hanhaga, that's matim for the days of pregnancy. And also not to pick up things too heavy, and not to run, different things that, you have to do things B'derech HaTeva also. He says in the end, you have to do things B'derech HaTeva. He's mixing the Derech HaTeva, but in the beginning, L'chol HaReish, remember, you're not an employee.
What is Meritza B'Kvilti?
Not to run too fast. So the inyanim of Derech HaTeva, you're still meant to play the game. But remember, you have specific instructions that are not part of the game, but they're your game. And you have to incorporate them in your strategy. It's as important for a Jewish person's strategy for success in business to take off Shabbos. It's as important for their strategy and happiness to be Mekayim this mitzvah. It's not going to happen without that mitzvah. There will be no happiness for a Jew without that mitzvah. Like the Rebbe in the first letter, you see, it's not there. Powerful words. In the first letter, he says, you see people that are not Mekayim and Kilo, they have healthy children. He writes very sharp words.
Yeah, you don't really
right?
know what you see.
He says that you never really know if they're happy or not. You can't really know what's going on, if they're healthy or not. These are not things you can see to the naked eye. That's what he writes. So in other words, this is integral to the begashmiistic happiness of a Yid. The next letter. Turn the page. Page 4. So here you have a blaming Shviger letter. Everybody has a letter, and they writes that they have no shalom bayis because the shviger is coming too often to visit. So there's no shalom bayis. Korev levadai shezeh b'shvil inyonei taras mishpacha. They Mishkan Kopter writes. Korev levadai, it's because of taras mishpacha. Asher noi, besides all the other consequences that come from not keeping it, there's a specific consequence in the area of shalom. Like the Gemara says, that the whole reason of this mitzvah was, not the whole reason, the part of the reason of this mitzvah, I said part because it has another letter, that mitzvahs weren't given for these things. The mitzvahs were given, but they also have these things attached to them. And moving to this is besides the fact that it's negea to the children. So here we have children, healthy children, peace between father, child, sibling, father, child, parents, children. And then you also have losing children, and then you have also Shalom B'chlal. The next letter, also B'negei Shalom. The Rebbe writes, in answer to her letter, she has 6 children, and there's friction in the home. And there's also common illness in the house, which is not the way it should be. In these kinds of circumstances, the first thing, lihizor uledaktik, to be careful and meticulous. Look at this. A person, before we address this whole topic, looks at Shabbos as intrusive, looks at certain mitzvahs, let's say Tahrah, as intrusive to my life. And here we're saying, just like when a person is not successful in business, you have a better strategy, be medactic, and that you'll make yourself happier. It's not intrusive. Pay attention to this with the same attention I pay to my Gashmiistic strategy. The more I strategize, the better. The more you do, the better. It's the other way around. This is your road to happiness, not the obstruction to happiness. Shabbos is your road to success, not the obstruction to success. The mindset is punkt verkehrt. Every area, every denomination in Yiddishkeit addresses this question. Chassidus turns the whole thing around. Modern Orthodox is going to still come with some kind of I'm modern or I'm Orthodox. What am I going to be? There's a contradiction. Chassidus is no contradiction. You're taka, not part of the human race. You have a different way and road. You're open yourself, make yourself a keli to something else. You are meant to think differently. Look at the whole picture differently. Every area in Yiddishkeit addresses this core question.
Which core question?
Of the contradiction of these specific mitzvahs that seem to contradict my natural way how I look at things, whether it's in business, whether it's in health, or whether it's in happiness. That's where these deis come into place. And Chassidus is addressing it with Ashkacha Pratis, with this punkt verkehrt. When I have a problem, make a keli. Let's make a keli. Add in Torah mitzvahs. What's the idea of add in Torah mitzvahs? Yeah, because that's how I'm going to be happier. That's how I'm going to have health. That's how I'm going to have success. That's why, if we say this with almost like instinctively, we say it without realizing what we're saying. If a problem, make a keli. If a problem, add a mitzvah. Make a hidur. Make a achlata. What's the mindset behind it?
So
the mindset. So in every area, look. You'll see there's a certain flow here of certain mitzvahs belong in certain categories. You had mitzvahs that belong in health. We had that last week, kashrus and other mitzvahs, and we had different collection of answers. And this week you see mitzvahs that belong in the area of happiness. There are specific mitzvahs. Mikveh we saw, kashrus will also be, has to do with a person's health as well. We'll get to that in a second. But let's see the last thing which you're waiting for, which is to rectify the past. All right? So first let me start off. There's another letter that I didn't put here. And that letter is in the Shari Chinuch. You can look it up. And the Rebbe writes like this. The Rebbe asks a question. How is it that there were Jewish communists? I mentioned this once. Because their parents didn't keep Taras Mishpacha. And that's, the Friedrich Rebbe mentions this.
They started communism.
Yeah. The Friedrich Rebbe mentions, so the Rebbe asks a question, so what do you do? Let's say a person, Masha Avar, so what do you do? The Rebbe writes, the koyach of tshuva that a parent can have of regret on the past can have a retroactive impact on the child even after they're born, and it could rectify the child's imperfection in regards to the child's spiritual emunah. By the way, spiritual and physical health, physical is physical health, spiritual is in regards to emunah. That's really what it is. There's an imperfection of emunah in a child that a lack of taras mishpacha creates that imperfection. Essentially, Tahrah is the mitzvah that transfers emunah to the next generation.
Can you do something else to that?
So there is something to do. We're going to see two letters over here. How that charata of the parents plays out. The two mitzvahs, the two things that Rebbe writes, is helping others be mekayim the mitzvah, helps a person's own lack, and the second area that Rebbe writes is giving tzedakah to a mikveh, which is like similar area supporting that mitzvah, also rectifies a person's own past in the sense of the imperfection.
They didn't do both or just one?
And one letter there writes one. No, they're both kalim. In other words, understand what's behind it. Pushing yourself more. The Rebbe has a similar letter to people that missed tefillin. For example, people that were in the camps, lager in sent to Siberia, and they had no tefillin there for years. So there would be answers of the Rebbe to some people. To do mitzvah tefillin with someone else is ki'ilu a kapara for the day you missed. There's a central theme here. By helping someone else, you're having, but it's a consequence of your own charata. The first thing is the charata, the tshuva. It plays out. Let's see the two letters, and then we'll see. So the first letter is on the top of the page. First letter is on top of the page. Let's see this letter. It's in Yiddish. I'll say it in English, but I'm going to be translating it as I'm reading through. I got your letter, and where you write on top of the page, page 5. Page 5. No, it's the same.
You fill up the chesaron that occurred in the world when the one who missed that particular mitzvah, there's a lack of chesaron.
So you're filling it,
out.
but it's not just in the world, but it's a real. In other words, like this: imagine a person is born without a hand. Chas v'sholom. Emun is a real thing. It's a pelagic thing. Person's already born. There's a blemish. They don't have something. The koyach of tshuva is so strong, it plays retroactively. Ki'ilu mitamol, he's growing a hand now. The parents could plant hisoidus tshuva in their children after they're already born. Through their hirur tshuva. Not hirur, through their real charata that they have.
That was my question.
But this is after they're born. These two letters are after.
What exactly does that? It's a nice
So the regret. So let's play it out in these letters. Let's see how the Rebbe ties it, and then we'll see. Yeah.
How do you know you're so what if the parents of the first? Okay, what if the parents are either the Bitachon or died or not from? Can the person himself do something? Because you have a lot of times on tshuva or tafum or something.
He doesn't write that up here. I don't know. I can check it out.
The children can rectify the parents too.
It would seem from the. Let's read the letter. It would seem from the letter that it's the same, because what the Rebbe is saying is that the tikkun comes through being mechazik that mitzvah.
So the person himself will do?
Through being mechazik that mitzvah.
What about
Through being mechazik the mitzvah in a friend, through being mechazik in others.
No, I'm saying if somebody knows of a friend, is that, or their parents take care of it, there's other ways of helping them.
Either the person himself can take care of it, or the person's parents. You can't take care of it; someone else.
So if you want to help them yourself.
Then you should bring it to their attention. Did I show you the letter where the Rebbe writes in one of the places the Rebbe writes, was weniger wird sich schämen wegen dem, was besser wird sein für alle. The Rebbe, one of the letters, the less we're going to be embarrassed to talk about it, the better it is for everyone. The Rebbe writes that lashon. It's like going to a doctor. Better to hit it on the nail than keep on going back with symptoms. Hit it on the nail. Yeah.
You all know of people who keep Torah mitzvahs, do all these things.
Waiting for that question. Right. So, to put this in perspective, what are we saying? Very good. What are we saying over there? Imagine someone sitting on the couch. They're saying, I want to make money. So you tell them, go out and work. If you're not going to go out and work, you're not going to make money. Tells them, I'm not going to go out and work. I see people working, they don't make money. So why should I go out and work? Do kifi yecholtecha. Do what you have in your hands. You have a tool in your hand. It's called going out to work. Do it, man. At least do what you have in your ability to do. Comes along Chassidus and explains to us, it's not just going out to work. Also, the same attention and focus you have in your success in the tool of going out to work should also be in the tool of keeping Shabbos. Al derech zen happiness. People, or in health. People want to have healthy children so they're healthy, they eat healthy, and they exercise, they do so many different things. So the Rebbe, and if you pay attention, the Rebbe asked the question, he could have asked two questions. In the first letter, he says, you see people who don't keep it and they have healthy children. He didn't ask, you see people that keep it and don't have healthy children. He didn't ask that. Because the Eibishter kills people with car accidents, and the Eibishter kills people young. We're not coming here to be God and have foolproof protection. That's not what he's coming here to tell you. He's not coming here to tell you that a person will never be sick and a person's never going to die and never have any problems. He's coming to bring to your attention, don't forget the first area, l'chol roish, when you have a problem, you go to see what's missing in the picture. So everybody always first goes to see the strategy. First they go to see the doctor. First they see the therapist. Don't forget, check this out. Because by a yid, as important it is to go see the therapist, it's as important to go check out this mitzvah. And that's where we differ from a goy. A goy doesn't have to check out Taras Mishpah. A yid does. A doctor, as important, kashrus. Health, parnasa, as important, meiser. Look at that as part of your strategy, not as an obstruction. That's key what the Rebbe is saying. That's called keli. Keli means it's part of making me successful. It's not blocking me. I'm open. That's part of how I run my life. That's what he's coming to tell you. Yeah. So the last two letters here about rectifying the past. Page 5. Back to the letter. Yeah. So he says that I got your letter, and where you write that the areas where you were until now brought to the scenario that you didn't really keep Taras Mishpah. That's the kinds of places where you were living. So it's important that from now on that you should keep those halachas the way the Torah tells you. Torah is Torah's Chaim. The Rebbe says this all the time. We don't pay attention to what these words mean. Why does it always highlight Torah is Torah's Chaim? He's saying this line. Torah is meant to help you live a good life. Torah is not meant to mix into your life. It's not meant to stop you from having a good life. It's just there to have you have a good life. Want to have a good life? I'm telling you a few more things you need to have a good life. No one's guaranteeing you a Gan Eden alei Adomis. But pay attention to these things with the same attention you pay to the things that you naturally think make you a good life. That's the idea of Torah, Torah's Chaim. So Torah brings life and happiness into a person's home. So the pachis, at least in a certain measure, to rectify the past, which wasn't the way it should be. A few times in the week, you should give some prutas, some money, which should be used to support a mikveh in one of the cities in Eretz Yisrael.
Maybe
I don't know.
the person is in Eretz Yisrael, or
maybe this person's in Eretz Yisrael. It would seem a mikveh b'chlal. Let's see the next letter. Next letter I don't think says Eretz Yisrael. But let's see. And also to convince other women that they should keep this mitzvah from the Eibishter, which brings health and hatzlacha. Hashem should give b'suras tayis. So here he's giving a tikkun on the past.
Is this the first letter in the fifth?
This is the first letter of a tikkun on the past.
It's on the fifth page, the first letter, right?
Yeah. Next letter.
So basically, it's to give tzedakah.
And to help others
To go
to do that mitzvah. Second letter that he writes. It's a keta from that letter. That which you write about raising children, about the behavior of children to their parents, which is not the way it should be. You should find out if this is not like in many cases, that the parents did not keep Taras Mishpacha at the time when the children were born. And if that is chas v'sholom the case, so the parents should take upon themselves a strong, real hachlata, decision, to do everything they can that their friends and acquaintances should keep this mitzvah, which this will rectify in a certain measure the big aveda that the parents went through not keeping that mitzvah, which was against themselves and against their children. The frat that Hashem sees that they have an emes echarota, and he will see to avoid. A person should see to help others not go through the same aveda that he went through, and strengthen them in the way of Tahrah. And that which and then he writes about his wife wasn't feeling well, and then the Rebbe gives a bracha for that. Again, so what's the tikkun over here? Tikkun over here is to be mechazik others in the mitzvah. So these letters, what they bring out, powerful letters. There's one letter which I didn't do, which is the first letter. It's a long letter, and I'll do that in the second page. Chelik Yud Aleph, it says on top. General letter. Get that in a second. The second page in this pamphlet. But let me just summarize these letters. What do these letters bring out? The letters bring out how afroshas chalak, we start off with, the recognition of a person in nature. How we look at nature. Let's take a step back a second and see the before and after. Before we started, and naturally we look and we say, what's the success, and how does a person make it? There are certain ways in Teva that a person makes it. Here, he's putting certain mitzvahs that begashmius help us. Usually we make a hafrada between gashmius and ruchnius. There's a zman in Beis HaKnesses, in a Kruma Yid. Here, the lashon was a strong lashon in the first letter. Tu nish a teva for the Eibishter, tu a teva for sich. Don't do a favor for the Eibishter. This is a favor for yourself. Simply for your own good, do this mitzvah. About Taras Mishpachi was referring to. No, hafrashas chala is a term used for this recognition and bringing it out in life. This is how it's brought out. This whole idea that we're saying, the recognition of Teva, the recognition of making money, the recognition that's within wealth. The recognition of a yid should be that these mitzvahs are simply there for my physical happiness. And there's a problem. The first area, I'm a hadar in these mitzvahs. So technically, it's not making a deal with Hashem when you make achlata. It's simply rectifying the problem that I had that I didn't have atzlacha. Some people say, I'm making a deal with Hashem, I'm doing a mitzvah. I'm not doing a deal. This is actually, it's like you pay money to the grocery, and is it a deal? You're not making a deal, you pay money, you get your groceries. This is part of how we get our groceries. This is part of how we go ahead and get our brachas. There's certain mitzvahs that are specifically in certain areas of life. Let me do the last letter. So like this we can finish on time. Okay, the last letter is over here to a convention of doctors. Sifas Roifim Datin in New York. The second letter, the second page. It's in Chelik Yud Aleph. So Rebbe writes, I'm happy to hear that there is a convention of a lot of fruma doctors getting together, which is a very good thing, because in our times you have to have the fruma people getting together, especially because there's so many different ideas running around in the world, so it's important to have fruma doctors getting together. Okay, the second paragraph. You have in your hands, as fruma doctors, to influence the way people think in the medical community through paying attention to certain points they want to bring out. Third paragraph. You have to say this with a loud voice. Real science, which its objective is to figure out the truth, the conclusions cannot be contradicting to Torah, which is truth. Can't be a contradiction. but the opposite. The more we understand science, the more we understand the world we live in, the closer we can come to the Eibishter. So he gives an interesting example. He says, as doctors, you have to bring out the problem with shitas memshelas hachomer. He seems to be implying there are two kinds of doctors. Sometimes when you go to a doctor, I know someone who was sick, he had an operation in the stomach, and he asked the doctor afterwards, the surgeon, so tell me, do I need to fix anything in my diet? Tell you a true story. He's a Russian surgeon. He tells him, Rabbi, don't worry about it. Eat what you want. You have my number. If you have any more problems, you come back to me. That's what he told him. Listen, he cuts and pastes. He does it very well.
Make money.
And don't worry, eat what you want. You have a problem, you come back to me. That's shitas memshelas hachomer. The body is like it's like a car shop, you know?
It's like a what?
It's like a car shop. You go to the car shop, you damage your car, you have a good mechanic, I'll get you a new part. What's the problem? You go right there, and the car goes on. So there's a shita of memshelas hachomer that in refuah, you just have to focus on the parts, and if there's a problem, that's it. Then there's another way of looking, which is more becoming, Rebbe actually writes this over here, it's becoming more prevalent today, which is that the feelings of a person affect the physical problems.
Emotion.
So the emotions, if a person is motivated, he'll cure quicker. If a person is happier, he'll have less problems, begashmis, and he says, so just like begashmis, you see that the real key to a person's physical health is not the choimer, but the tzura, not the actual aver, not the body part, but the feeling
Inside.
behind the person, which automatically influences that body part and changes it. He says, so too with the Yid. We can understand from this, same thing with the Yid in Torah mitzvahs. Gives that example for Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs helps the Yid begashmis. Gives that example. So he brings out with vitamins and hormones, he gives different examples of how a person understands that these things apply begashmis in refuah. So I want you guys as doctors influence the other doctors. And he gives a few examples on the next page. He says when it comes to autopsies, so you should be very careful to only do it when it's necessary. And he gives an example when it's necessary. Let's say someone's accusing the other person of poisoning someone else. So you have to do it to verify that to take away the accusation. But only do it in the areas where you have to do it. Gives another example of vitamins. Vitamins can be made with tarfus, gelatin, or they can be made kosher. You should be influencing doctors. They can make it with kosher. Why shouldn't they make kosher ones? You should be influencing them that it's important for the health of the people. How they should. So you, as from a doctor, should be put. And he also quotes Tahrah mishpacha. You should be pushing them to do different. And Mila he pushes kashrus. Again, he's giving an example. And at the end he writes, I'm not trying to say that Torah mitzvahs, the reason for them is for health, is for happiness. But I have to bring this out because some people are sick in their minds. The choyle b'nafshi is saying. So they have to understand that there's also a component of happiness in a person. That shouldn't be the reason why you do Torah mitzvahs, but it happens to be a real thing. And you should highlight to them when you need to, if that's the only way to bring them around. But this is a letter again, highlighting again how Torah mitzvahs is not something which is basham. It influences the choimer. It influences a person's physical well-being is rooted in Torah mitzvahs. So let me summarize what we learned today with all the letters. I guess we have a conclusion.
So did we ever answer the Hafrashas Chala?
And then we'll answer also the Hafrashas Chala and how that plays out from the first sefer. I think these are very powerful letters. Put them today, you can take it with you. And yeah.
Is there a book that specifies how do you pick these letters? You're familiar with all
I went
the-
through the Mafteches.
There is a mafteach?
There's Mafteches on the
General
Igris.
Mafteach?
You can look through under
Well, it's
Nachas.
made one,
No, they also made another one on everything, but it doesn't seem like it didn't have everything. In the regular Mafteches, in the back of Chelik Chof, there's a Mafteches. So you look under Nachas, look under Tahrah and Mishpacha, and you'll find these letters. And I went through them, and I took the letters that are relevant in these areas. And you'll see, that's how the Rebbe, you'll see a sprach, you'll see a certain language, certain message, certain theme, how the Rebbe speaks on every single area. And the Rebbe is obviously showing that this is not something which is just a mitzvah I have to do. It's negeya in a person's gashmiistic happiness. That's why I titled it The Role of Tahrah in Happiness. Passion again, just like you have to go. The therapist, if a therapist will ever tell a person, don't be Mekayim the mitzvah, throw him out the door. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You're comparing apples to oranges, a goy to a yid, you can't compare. Which is really the key problem in many therapists. They look at a yid like a goy. Don't look at a yid like a goy. Or even a yid who doesn't look at Torah mitzvahs in this way can't be a real therapist.
They train.
If a yid who's
on going.
but it's like taking, I don't want to say this, but it's like taking a
And
monkey.
The licenses are
Okay.
in the universities. I threw out all the books. They're irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. You have to have a strategy to have a good business. But you have to remember that you also need Shabbos. There are certain things that doesn't a mensch, right? You can't be a behemoth and be happy. It doesn't work that way. You have to be a mensch. But in Inyane of Torah mitzvahs, he can't have a day. He can't tell you, oh, better you don't have it for a few months since it's Besser. Doesn't make sense. You don't know what you're talking about. That's like saying I should eat poison for 3 months. It doesn't begin. The whole... really, in the end of the day, if you ask someone, the doctor said, the doctor said. The rabbi said, I don't know, how does the rabbi know that? Where'd the rabbi come from? That's usually the reaction we get. The Eibishter, what does the Eibishter know about my life? Punk verkehrt. There's a normal reaction. That's how usually things play out. The rabbi said, it's a joke. The rabbi said, so the rabbi said, big deal. My rabbi said different. How much do you pay the rabbi to say that? That's usually how it plays out. I give the rabbi a bigger donation. He'll say it differently next time. That's usually how it plays out. The doctor said, he has a PhD, so he knows what he's talking about. He knows in certain areas. Just like the economist knows, and just like just like every other, it's not enough kamina of not doing apiteva. It's simply enough kamina of paying as much attention to the inyani Torah mitzvah and negaya to that area. Some people take it to the other extreme. So I'm not going to go apiteva. I don't care. No, that's not what we're saying. Have to be a mensch, and there are certain things that a doctor can help you. A doctor can help you in certain things, just like a doctor can help you in a physical strategy. But always remember that certain inyanim are not touchable. He has no daya on that. He doesn't begin to understand how that has an impact on us. That's the only difference. You have to understand how that works. That's it. That's the enough of it. Let's be masakin. So we started off with a question. When it comes to a person, a yid makes money, a yid goes ahead in business, which is essentially the idea of dough, essentially the idea of challah. So we say that you have to be mafresh challah. Now we understand. The default of a yid is avodah zarah. Default of anyone is avodah zarah. What's avodah zarah? Avodah zarah in Chassidus is explained the fact how we throw the Eibishter out of Teva is called avodah zarah. We throw him out of our life and we feel he's an obstruction to my happiness. That's essentially the mindset of avodah zarah. That leads to eventually a person throwing the Eibishter out of my life. No one is going to live a life that someone else is meddling in there. Eventually we throw them out, which is what happens throughout the generations. It started with modern Orthodox and ends with almost modern and ended up with nothing, right? That's how things, or conservative, that's how, once the Eibishter meddles, I don't want him. So that's avodah zarah. So you have to have hafrashas challah. What's hafrashas challah? Hafrashas challah is a recognition of the other way around. That the Eibishter is involved. Not only that, there's truma and there's tzedakah. Tzedakah means I made money and I give you. Truma means it was never mine. I'm giving you that which was, you were always there. That's what truma is. You were always there. And that's what hafrashas challah is. Hafrashas challah means that I recognize you were always in me to help me be successful in the natural things that I have to do in the 6 days of a week. I was never an employee. I always remembered I have a seventh day. I always remembered I'm different. I always remembered I have another road to happiness, and I was always open to that, and I incorporated that, and I was as meticulous in that as I was meticulous in the 6 days a week. That's hafrashas challah. And that's bittul avodah zarah. That's how you deactivate the previous mindset of a person. And that's more prevalent in a person who's out there in the world. As much as it sounds weird, but that's how it is. The more you're in the world, the more you recognize how the world is not a guarantee. So the more you recognize how the teva that we have is really never a guarantee. And that's why a businessman or a baker has less of a chiv of a hafrashas challah. Because the more you're in the world, the more you really see the Eibishter. In simple words, it's like more of it in an unstable environment you are, the more you realize how Teva B'chlal is unstable. So you're trying to say Teva is so concrete it delivers, but you see yourself it doesn't deliver. There's always going to be loopholes. So now you have a choice how to take it. The moment you have a loophole that's taking away half of the need for the recognition, you see it doesn't. Person is in the house or in a stable environment, or career person, or a yeshiv oil is another example brought down. They don't see hashgacha pratis as much. They don't see hashgacha pratis. They don't see how the Eibishter is involved in their life. Although they're learning, you can say a person in seminary versus out of seminary, in yeshiva versus out of yeshiva. It's the same idea. They think when they're in, they see more. Really, when you're out, you see more. That's how it works, B'teva. The more a person's in the world, the more they recognize how unstable the world is. I'll finish with the Gleichwertel. They say, how does a Yid and a Goy take this? So what do we say? A Yid takes the unstable world and takes it and sees the Eibush in every single thing. How does a Goy take it? A Goy takes it the other way around. They say in Chelm, when the train came out, so they were very fascinated by the train. They asked, how does this happen? Where does this come from? They had 99 chachamim, and they sent them on a mission to figure out how the train works. And they came back with the brainstorm. And the whole, Bamayel, Shamayla, the whole city came out to hear it. What did they say? The 99th person said, there's 99 cars in the train. The 99th is pulled by the 98th. It's a tumult, it's a great brainstorm. It's a Zayr. The 98th by the 97th. First one said, and the second one is being pulled by the first. Beautiful. Pasha, you the last. I don't understand. And where is the first pulled by? So they stormed on the stage and says, you bunch of tipshin. We explained to you 99 cars, and you're bothered by one. Where are you coming from? The scientists say, we explained to you how the world comes from, it's the matter, the gas. And you're bothered, where does the gas come from? That's what you're bothered by. A goy, the difference between a maimin and not a maimin is exactly this. Teva is unstable. You're never going to get to the first. Always there's going to be a missing link. The question is how you take it. I'm so great, look how much I did do. The insurance agency tells, look how much I could provide for you. That little bit I can't. Every area in life there's going to be, look how much I could do. That area. So you have a choice. Do you take that little area and define the first and saying, so you see you never really did it? Or do you turn it around and say, look how much I really did, but you're missing the bubble. You're really in a bubble. You see that you couldn't get to the first, so you really did nothing. Showing you got 99 cars is essentially saying you never figured out how the train works. Because it's got to be pulled. It's got to have. And that's the difference between the recognition of a Yid in it. In other words, how you look at the nature you live in. Of course I have to have a strategy, but the 7th day defines the 6 days. The importance I put on Shabbos, the meticulousness I have in kashrus is a consequence of my prioritizing. The meticulousness I have in my strategy. You see a person when they send in a resume, check all the dots to make sure everything should be, there shouldn't be any misconception. Oh, so now when you see a person careful in kashrus, you take it with a different thing, because it's also the brachas. So where am I meticulous? Am I as meticulous? In my hidur now makes sense. Hidur begashmius makes sense, because the same way I'm a hader, I don't want my storefront to look like a mess. I have a nice sign. So are you using that same methodology, that same outlook, that this is my road to success, so therefore I have to have a nice sign, therefore I have to have a nice marketing, therefore I have to have a nice email, whatever it may be. That same approach is in the 7th day. Therefore I'm going to be Mahader and Shabbos. And that's what exactly the B&H story is. A beautiful, that's why he closed also Chomeres. The hidur that you have in it is a consequence of an outlook. And that's the road to Yiddish success. And we'll finish with that.